of the Oz DeFi Community Podcast. My name is Shahirah. I'm co-founder at Finch and venture partner at Scalata and your host today. Today I'm welcomed by the amazing team at Hashlock, Jock and Fletcher. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Shahirah. Thanks for having us on. Pretty excited. Not too bad. Not too bad. It's Friday and it's nice and sunny. We're both in Newcastle, so looking forward to the weekend, but this is a nice way to end the week, I feel like. So yeah, very good.
Definitely. Well, thanks for having us, Shahirah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hashlock is a smart contract auditing company, and I'd love to hear all about what you do, how you do it, which is so important for every and any Web3 project out there, and especially in this climate of security hacks, of which we've had several notable ones of late. But before we dive into that, I always like to start off with a bit of an intro of your individual backgrounds, where you've come from, how you came into Web3. Jock, I might kick off with you.
Yeah, of course. So I guess we came from quite a diverse background. Myself, a little bit of software development, some computer science, cryptography, and a specialization in cybersecurity. And I guess both Fletcher and I were very early adopters of cryptocurrencies, more so Bitcoin and Ethereum. It sort of fueled our interest in the space. And as we saw that, I guess blockchain technology was gaining a lot of traction, and smart contracts were emerging as a critical component of that system, we thought it would be a good idea to sort of figure out how can we stress the importance of security within this immutable space.
100%. And if you wanted to kind of me to bounce off that a little bit, so I think the really important thing when talking to any Web3 founder, we try to keep it very important, is holding the right Web3 and blockchain values and core principles. One of the best places to point people is Mastering Ethereum, really good read, and some of those initial things that are related to Ethereum, but most of them are applicable to the rest of blockchains, not all. That's sort of how we try to describe ourselves first, with the right sort of values. And that kind of is why we value security so much as one of the core principles and core problems. So hackathons and bug bounties are sort of the pre-Hashlock era for us. So what is Hashlock? So the core of what we do is we audit smart contracts. But what that means in layman's terms is the difference between a smart contract and traditional code, and why it needs an audit, is because this is essentially permanent code that handles currency based on the world computer, aka usually Ethereum or compatible with the Ethereum network. So what Hashlock actually is a company full of people with manual analysis skills, as Jock was saying, and the ability to sit down, not only use tools, which a lot of firms can do, developers should be doing, running code through tools, but actually sitting down, talking to the project or the company, and understanding what they're trying to do with their code, what the protocol is trying to do, where the value is held, and then us manually going through each contract and finding issues. Because, and this leads into some of the other things we'll talk about later, tools cannot find everything.
So I guess how we do it, we have a much more human approach to smart contract auditing. We didn't like the robotic approach and sort of transactional system that a lot of the international firms were using. And sort of drawing from our experience in the field, we saw an opportunity to have a much more boutique approach that could offer more personalized and sort of detailed auditing. So this approach, it very much relies heavily on manual analysis compared to the automated tools that a lot of the big firms use. During that manual analysis, we find much more vulnerabilities than you'd normally find only offering those automated tools. And so that boutique detailed approach that Hashlock provides, it just seemed to create such a rapport for Hashlock and its brand that through that referral opportunity, we just kept seeing more jobs come in.
Can you give us some examples of implications of a poorly written smart contract? What are some things you've seen as a result of that?
Do you want to grab that one, Jock?
Yeah, well, a lot of the time as well, it can be a smart contract that isn't inherently poorly written. I guess it's just not written with a security focus in mind. So we can have contracts, and I guess we've had project leaders come to us in the past, and they've used open Zeppelin templated contracts. Now, these are sort of templates for smart contracts that any project leader can use. They're readily available online, and they're community audited. They're very safe. However, when you change a line within that template, and now it's a custom smart contract, you can inherently risk the entire smart contract. We have these horror stories where, unfortunately, people are using these templated smart contracts and they say, hey, I'm not the best developer, but surely one line isn't going to change too much. And next minute, their liquidity pool is entirely drained. And unfortunately, by that stage, we offer the security of, we're trying to stop that thing from happening in the first place. And that's the service that we provide. It's a much harder service to provide the aftermath part of that security.
I'd like to dig into kind of the key differences between this sort of human approach that you're providing at Hashlock versus some of the automated, because I imagine a lot of projects are relying on these automated tools. When you do that manual review, what are the sorts of things you're testing for or looking out for that these tools just can't?
Very good question. So the things that they can find, and they're pretty good at finding, are some of the you'll hear buzzwords. You'll hear re-entrancy attacks. That's one buzzword you'll hear. You'll hear overflow, underflow. You'll hear a bunch of buzzwords of different categories, and they're usually very explicit within the code. And a tool can often find them pretty easily, most of the time. Not all, but most of the time. The thing that both tools and even some early AI applications can't find, as I was saying before, is things that a compiler or a tool, it might not, the code still works. By definition, the code still does a job, but that job might facilitate an exploiter's goals, right? So it compiles fine. You don't have any very easy way of making funds get withdrawn, but there is things that were left out by developers, not thought of. And so what it really is a hacker. The code is technically okay, but a hacker can think a little bit ahead of the developers and just find it's more of a loophole. It's a logic loophole. So the code still, it's hard for a machine to find logic loopholes. It's more of we often use the term creative exploits. They're very creative. And so auditors, the best auditors are very creative. It's like a puzzle. You have to think of where the value's held and all the different ways that, value, the assets can be manipulated, or even just data can be manipulated. And so, or for example, the contract just doesn't line up with what you'd think it would do and how you act, and you launch it permanently and you realize it doesn't do some things you wanted it to do. I'd
like to use this opportunity to maybe distinguish between security hacks that are probably, unintentional but exploited by bad actors, and then a lot of scams that we've also seen in the market by various projects and project members that have just conducted themselves unethically. Is there an opportunity for a smart contract review to reduce that in happening, or maybe start by sort of describing the difference between the two, and to what extent can a review address those types of concerns?
I love that question. That is a big problem within our industry as a whole, but also within blockchain security, right? So when we do an audit, there's a bunch of communication and legal work we have to do around communicating that we assure the code, and that only means certain things. So starting with hacks is what we prevent. So a hack or an exploit, or it doesn't, sometimes it even happens when it's not maliciously. It's just the code itself was so faulty that something goes missing or goes wrong. Those are things that we prevent. So attacking the code or something going wrong with the code, that is what primarily a smart contract audit prevents. There are other services that ourselves or a similar company can provide. We can try to do KYC, which is trying to look at the owners and stopping scams. There's other things we can do, monitoring bots on a smart contract, a bunch of things that we can do, but it's very hard for us to stop scams. And the main definition to us in terms of a blockchain scam is typically the owners. So bad owners, right? So they most good protocols have things that only the owners can do. They have functions and use cases that only the owner can call. And it's good. We want them in there because one of them might be to pause the contract. There might be security methods, change ownership, but they can be used by bad owners or bad leadership. And then you've just got classic, non-code rug pulls, which is where you hype up, you maybe get a celebrity, make all these promises, and then just, they sell all of their tokens, and there's no way for us to stop that unless we do some very heavy KYC, but we're never going to be able to, avoid that. So,
well, I guess if we can declare that the functionality exists for owners to pull a certain amount of liquidity from the protocol or platform quickly, and that can lead to that. However, a lot of those owner executable functions, which lead to, I guess, a lot of centralization within a platform or protocol, to some extent, that can be used as a security method. Because if it's completely decentralized and it's essentially a vending machine running itself, if something goes wrong, there's no sort of method or way that an owner can go in and fix the problem without any upgradable functionality. It's sort of a difficult one, because we are more so like to assure the code. The code in itself is very black and white. It's very binary. Literally, I guess when it's compiled, it is binary. Who knows? But essentially, because we can assure that the code is safe and free from vulnerabilities, that's something that we can do. It's much harder to assure whether a person is good or bad, essentially.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Fletch, earlier around kind of legal implications, and I guess in the Web 2 world, any kind of compliance audit or review is held to regulatory standards, of which for us in this industry is obviously still in play. So what are the standards, if any, are you kind of working to or towards, and how does the industry ensure that all smart contract audits are adhering to some kind of framework, if one exists?
Is that a you question, Jock? Do you want to start with that one? Yeah, sure. I can take that one. So I guess in how we're sort of helping with regulation and that sort of, I guess, compliance, we have our own sort of personal and professional beliefs. Like to some degree at the moment within industry, it's sort of seen as this not required by law, but best practice that you get a smart contract audit, not only for the security of your project, but also to build trust within the community around your project. We're working closely with New South Wales government. We're a part of their digital and AI task force. We're also working closely with, I guess, industry bodies around blockchain technology within Australia, like FinTech Australia and Blockchain Australia. And we're putting out, submissions to government and treasury regarding token mapping and sort of the structures that we believe will best fit moving forward. So whether or not like it's a very difficult tightrope to walk, because on one side of the fence you have, I guess, regulation that can stifle innovation, but then also you have, I guess, the security wall that's up in front of mass adoption. So we want to push more adoption of the technology that we believe is the future. And we, unfortunately, that sort of barrier to entry is definitely security. So maybe it's sort of a gray answer of, should there be legislated smart contract audits for projects that are listed on Australian exchanges? You know, they have a large amount of funds on chain. That should be something that maybe government or regulation looks towards. But at the moment, it's sort of, there's no one telling you to do it. It's just best practice that you should.
We mentioned kind of manual review being core to your offering, and given the launch of ChatGPT 4 this week and all kinds of very creative applications of it, I was scrolling through Twitter the other day and actually saw smart contract auditing as a potential use case. Tell me how you're thinking about that. Where does AI sit in terms of maybe supporting some of what you're doing on the manual review side?
You want to go for that, Jock?
Yeah, for sure. I guess well, on a personal level, we're definitely using ChatGPT and I guess the newly released GPT-4 model. We always are sort of, you know, looking at emerging tech and making sure that we're sort of, you know, at the cutting edge level of anything that's new and coming out in the space. So we've tried to see if we can sort of, I guess, in the past, write functions within smart contracts that can attack certain protocols and platforms, and try to see if, I guess, those sort of ChatGPT models can be used in a bad way as a bad actor. But also, I guess, in terms of, because like Fletcher said before, the majority of those findings are found through that sort of manual analysis. Although the AI might be able to look through the code and sort of ensure that it's functioning correctly, whether it's functioning to the specifications that I guess the project leaders have told the public this is what it's meant to do, and whether it can find sort of those very, very low level interactions that we find. And, you know, I guess it can even be to like a spelling mistake that might, I guess, ruin an entire function, or whether that function, although it works and it's intended to work a certain way, but it doesn't. So it's not that things, I guess, work, that at the moment ChatGPT can sort of get a baseline understanding whether the smart contract works, but whether it works as intended, that's a different story.
Yeah.
That's also just great advice, I think, to anyone listening, and particularly those kind of working in projects that can certainly benefit from leveraging, you know, AI. It seems like it's absolutely here to stay, and it will continue to blow minds and businesses. And so hopefully we want to be on the right side of that, and, you know, use these emerging technologies to our advantage. A couple of practical questions on Hashlock. So what's a typical stage that a company would come to you to engage with an audit? How long does an audit take? And if available, is there sort of a stage of company or a kind of a price range of client that you typically work with?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's another thing that some people have misconceptions on, not everyone. So the best time and the most ideal time to get an audit is obviously before launch, before the code, the smart contracts get, you know, posted to mainnet blockchain. Unfortunately, first of all, there is some times when they'll come to you after. You'll get an inquiry, and they'll come to you after, and you'll do an audit, and you'll find some stuff that's not quite good, some vulnerabilities, and there's nothing much you can do. There is upgradable contracts, but yeah, it's not much you can do most of the time. So what happens is the project or company comes to us at the probably the last third of the development cycle, ideally before it's complete, as it's finishing up, so we can start to understand specifications, start to partner with them, give early advice on security, so that things don't get really like embedded into the protocol. Right. And then so they'll come to us once the smart contracts are ready for auditing. They're 95% complete. They stop development so we can audit it, which is part of the development process. And then we give them a preliminary report, which is internal, very confidential, of what we've found, and telling them how vulnerable their smart contracts currently are, and give them a bunch of recommendations on how to fix each one. Their developers go and fix them, and then we re-review, check them, make sure that they're fixed, and then we can give our thumbs up that we believe, to the best of our ability, we never ensure, but to the best of our ability, that we haven't found anything more that can cause problems. Some companies actually get multiple audit firms with different skill sets, and might find different types of vulnerabilities. Hopefully it's not needed, but it is a thing that often happens. How long does an audit take? That's a bit of a hard question. There's two types of audits we like to think about. Two main categories. So you've got projects and protocols. So projects is, usually like a very small token or NFT or something of that nature. Protocols more of a very large decentralized app or decentralized organization, or framework built, or it can be entire layer 2 and those sort of things. Protocols, you're gonna want a long auditing period. You're gonna want a month probably to do a good audit, including all the changes and the preliminary report. You probably want a month, give or take. What we quote is based on lines of code, complexity, and also responsibility. How much, what type of assets? Is it just data, or is it actually a significant amount of currency style assets?
That's great. I mean, it's just helpful to know how you price it, and I think describing the different types of projects and complexity of the projects will help listeners kind of understand what that might entail. We are unfortunately run out of time today, but I did want to squeeze in one last question, which is always a community question. But you did mention earlier on in the call that Hashlock is experiencing really strong growth, and a lot of that is due to the client work that you've done and the referrals from that. So talk to us about kind of your experience in the community and what community means to both of you.
Yeah, for sure. I guess something that we really want to push in the space in regards to community is definitely more sort of empowerment around education. A lot of people, when you say smart contract audit, they say smart contract what? And they think audit as in the sort of traditional finance style of audit. And, unfortunately, I think that's just due to the name, but that's something that we want to sort of get out there, the importance as well. Unfortunately, even this week, there's been hacks where $200 million worth of funds is stolen within a few clicks, and that sort of thing is, I guess, a thing that's difficult for us, because we see it as we have to find all the bugs, whereas a bad actor just needs to find one good one, essentially. So we're trying to, I guess, streamline the process a bit. We've started a initiative called Trusted Web3. And this sort of serves as like a community platform where people who sort of want to dip their toes into the Web3 space, the blockchain space, but maybe they're worried about security and sort of don't know where to start. This sort of platform provides a database of providers that with either vetted in some way or can ensure to some degree that they do operate in a secure manner. And so there's consultancy firms, there's developers, there's educational hubs, and it's sort of a good starting point, we think, if people are sort of looking into that sort of space and want to sort of get into the Web3 ecosystem.
Yeah, it's also just a good news source. I think the other aspect of Trusted Web3, really good place to sort of go to. It's soon to launch, by the way, so you may or may not see it when you're watching, but it's a really good place to go to find case studies, blogs, and just information and updates around blockchain cybersecurity. And if you're wondering about how secure the industry currently is and what's going on with blockchain security, go there, and there'll be some good content there for you to have a read.
Yeah, fantastic. So Trusted Web3 will be a website or a platform launching soon. So we'll keep our
Yeah. At trustedweb3.io.
trustedweb3.io. Fantastic. Well, Fletch and Jock, thank you both so much for your time. Really appreciate all the very practical and informative insights on smart contract auditing, the different things to look out for, and how to go about engaging and reviewing providers. Thank you again for being really generous with your time today. Everyone listening at home, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you both.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.